Hello everyone and welcome to the second class of building this website. Today we're going to be covering setting up the initial structure. So when you first start building any site, the first thing you want to do is set up your default layouts. This involves setting up what the navigation bar and header will look like, what the layout of your pages and posts will be, and what features will be present on them. All these settings you'll be able to change anytime and can be overridden on each individual page, but it's always a smart idea to set up your default look first so when you look at anything you always see a vision of your final product. Additionally, you'll want to avoid overriding these settings as much as possible because not only is it going to be more work for you, but it's important from a UX and branding perspective to be consistent with the layout of your pages and posts. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started setting up the layout. For us, we're using Themify Ultra. So everything will be taking place within this themes settings section here under the Themify Ultra tab. And the first thing we're going to be customizing is our default page layout, which can be found in the default layout section here. So I'll go ahead and open up the default page layout. Now, as you can see inside this section, you can set what navigation bar, or sorry, not navigation bar, sidebar you want on the page here. Whether or not you want to hide the page title or featured image and the comments on the page. I don't want to have a sidebar on any of my pages. They can be tastefully done, but I personally think it clutters up the page. The majority of the time, it's a business using it for advertisements, which I don't really like. So we want a clean full width page, and we're going to go ahead and select the no sidebar option. Besides that, we're going to go ahead and hide the title in all of our pages, as well as disable all the comments. We'll be totally customizing our page layout, and while we may decide we want the page title on our pages, we can include that when we customize our header later on. We won't have any featured images, so we can leave that alone, and we don't want people to comment on our pages. So the next thing we're going to customize is the default single post layout. So I'll go ahead and open up that section. And as you can see, this looks very similar to the pages section, but with a few more options. Again, we want our posts to be full width, so no sidebar. And then let's also keep the classic post layout. Let's hide the post title. Let's hide the post meta. Hide the post date. And I think that's it. I think that's all we need to do for it. Well, actually, let's go ahead and click do only show posts in the same category. That way, when someone's viewing our class content, they'll only see relevant classes at the bottom of the page. Additionally, just like our pages, we'll put the page title in ourselves whenever we make a custom header for our posts. So the next thing we'll do is we'll set our default archive post layout. When it comes to the default archive post, in our particular instance, designing this website, we don't actually want people to land on this page. What it is it's essentially a repository for all the posts you've created on your site. It's default with WordPress, and we won't be able to get rid of it. It's great for blogs and other websites where you'd want a user to be able to look through all of your content just kind of en masse. But in our case, we want users to navigate to those in a particular way. Luckily, we can design our site so users won't be able to land on it. That being said, let's go ahead and set up the page just in case we ever want to use it. So go ahead and select the Archive Post tab if you haven't done so already, and we're going to keep the sidebar this time for the sake of navigation. Additionally, let's select the 3-box grid post layout. Let's go ahead and set the post content to boxed, post filter, yes, and you don't have to know what all this means right now. We'll get into some of this later as we continue designing the site. Masonry, we're going to leave that alone. Post gutter, we're going to leave that alone. Display content, none. More text, we're going to leave that alone. We'll order by date, descending. Leave the post title alone. We're going to hide our meta. We're going to let's go ahead and leave the post date alone. So that's all we're going to do on our default archive post. we'll probably end up just redirecting users, whoever might land on this page, but it's nice to have, at least some basic settings just in case. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to now navigate over and set our default header and footer layouts. So this all occurs in this themes settings and then theme appearance. So here you can see we have our header design and our footer design. So in our site, we'll be creating custom headers for our pages and posts, but for most sites that you build, and I build even, these default settings are enough. So we're going to go ahead and customize these anyway, even though we'll probably be overriding this in the end. As for the footer, we're probably not going to change anything because usually the default settings are good enough. So let's go ahead and get started customizing our header design. So there's quite a few different options here, and the best way to kind of see what's going on is to actually look at a page. So I'm going to go ahead and navigate over to our sample page that comes default, and we'll take a look and see what it looks like. So let's take a preview. Okay, so here's our sample page. So this is just a really simple page that comes default with the WordPress installation. So our header is going to be this section right here that contains my WordPress search thing, just another WordPress site and a sample page. So when we hop back over, we're going to hide the search form, and then the navigation bar can be changed with any of these. So let's go ahead and set the header block and save. Come back over and take a look, refresh, and see what it looks like. So as you can see, it's changed up there, and that search thing has, the search bar has been disabled because we clicked to disable it. So let's hop back over, and most of the time I like to stick with these more narrow headers. So this header top bar, header horizontal. Occasionally, depending on the type of website, I'll use this header magazine. It really depends on, if you're trying to become a web designer, what the client wants. Feel free to click and mess around with some of these other ones. A couple that I'm also a pretty big fan of are this header slide out and the header overlay. So like this header slide out, click save, come over here, we'll refresh. You got this kind of hamburger that you would normally see on a mobile device, but it's enabled for all device sizes now. It adds a little bit of animation to your page, and it kind of cleans up the content on it as well. So I've been using that more often. But let's go ahead and just select header horizontal. We'll save it. And then let's come down to our footer, see what it looks like. Well, let's go ahead and center that. So come back over. You can see footer horizontal left. Let's go footer block. Save. Yeah, that looks a little better. So the last thing we're going to do is we're going to optimize our site for performance, and that's going to be by minifying our scripts. So, and that can be found in this performance and minified scripts tab. What we're going to do is we're just going to click to enable gzip scripts. So you can see a little bit of a description about what each one of these things does. And we're just going to kind of leave it at that. Well, actually, let's go ahead and click to output it as inline CSS because that can improve our page loading speed. And if it does happen to slow down our performance, then we'll come back and we'll uncheck it. But let's go ahead and leave that and have it as optimized as possible for now. And click save. And that's all I think we have to cover for this section. So once you're done with this, and it doesn't matter what site you're doing it for, you should have a pretty basic structure for your pages and posts now, and then a good platform to kind of start designing off of. And I would recommend doing this every single time you start building a website. All right, well, I'll see you guys next class. Thanks.